Hello, welcome to this talk all about Odoo spreadsheets. And specifically, we're going to try to highlight some of the new features that we have here for you in version 15. If you're new to Odoo spreadsheets, if you haven't played around with an Odoo spreadsheet before, or if you're new to Odoo entirely, this will also serve as an introduction. But along the way, I'm going to highlight all the stuff that we have that's new this time around. So, Odoo spreadsheets, what is it? It's not a replacement for Excel. It's not a total replacement for something like Google Sheets necessarily, maybe one day. Instead, what it really is it is a built-in tool that lives inside the Odoo platform, and the whole purpose of it is it's supposed to enable our users to have the ability to gain more insights into their data coming from all the different Odoo apps. And I mean that when I say all the Odoo apps. Basically, if there's data in it, you can send that to an Odoo spreadsheet. It'll update in real time, and then you can do things like formulas, comparisons, or maybe set it to some KPIs and monitor how it's performing over time. So it's a great tool. And I say Spreadsheets 2.0 because we debuted it a year ago, and in that time, it's gained a lot of popularity. We were excited about it then. We're still very excited about it, and we've added a lot of improvements to it, and we're going to continue to grow it as time goes on. And so the whole concept of how Odoo works with Odoo spreadsheets, it can be explained in terms of the interactions it has with other apps. And some key examples that we've done over the last year or that we've seen are if you use sales, this is a common example. This allows you to have an easy way of calculating and monitoring your sales rep's commission. And that's great because it solves a problem that we had for a long time where commission is different for every single company. And a lot of times people would export it and handle it all in Excel, or they would spend a lot of money on developing the perfect formulas to build it in, and it would cost a lot. And of course, commission structures change. So every time there's a change, you'd have to change the formulas and your developments. Basically, now what you can do is you can have your sales data feed directly into an Odoo spreadsheet, and in real time, you set up all the rates and all the calculations so it tells you what your commission is going to be, and it's really easy to edit it and change it over time. So that's been really helpful. Other examples, accounting. You can use it for budget tracking. Accounting in Odoo already has a good budget tool, but there might be a lot of different kind of budgets that you set up, and you might have your own way of tracking the KPIs over time, and it could be department by department. Chances are you might find it easier to work with a spreadsheet to do that. So you can do that by having invoices and bills and things like that sent to a spreadsheet for budgets. Inventory, there's other applications there. For example, you might be able to set up a spreadsheet that is going to track the shelf life of your certain products. And you can see how quickly are certain products moving and how long are they staying on the shelf over time. Maybe compare it warehouse by warehouse. Purchase, you might be tracking your vendor information. You might compare multiple vendors side by side, or you might compare vendor prices gradually over time and seeing how prices are fluctuating on some of the components that you're buying. Project is really good for various kinds of KPIs because maybe all of your consultants or your people that are working on tasks, you have certain goals for them in terms of how many hours that they're billing per day or maybe how many deadlines they're meeting over time. So you can set up all sorts of KPIs and goals in a spreadsheet and then see how that compares over time. And then even in manufacturing, you might use that to monitor your workers' productivity over time. You might be using it to see how many quality checks are passing versus how many quality checks are not passing. Again, setting KPIs, setting goals, and seeing how these things shape up over time. So yeah, a lot of different applications, and these are just some of the core modules and some of the use cases I've seen over the past year. But really, if there's data in the app, you can use it in Odoo for a spreadsheet and see what kind of things you can figure out and analyze from that data. So I'm going to go ahead and go straight into actually showing it in action, so I'm not just talking about it. Let me go ahead and switch over to this database right here. This is a version 15 database, so this is going to have the new features in it. And the best way to explain how a spreadsheet gets created in Odoo is by looking at some data first. I'm going to go ahead and grab, let's say, invoice analysis. It's a good way to show it. Now, to generate it, the way that it has been for the last 2 years is typically you'd go to a pivot table. In a pivot table, if you're new to Odoo and if you're new to pivot tables, basically it's a report that shows you an x-axis and a y-axis, and you could say whatever you want on the x-axis. In this case, I'm going to say salesperson. And of course, you could say whatever you want on the y-axis, as long as it's data that's related to invoices, which is what we're looking at. And I'm going to say products. So let me pull that up. Product. Okay, cool. And you can get way more complicated if you want with a pivot table. You can do multiple layers, drill down, and say maybe by product category, maybe by date, who knows. But I'm just going to leave it like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and immediately, you see, insert in spreadsheet right here. And you could choose an existing spreadsheet if you want. I'm going to go ahead and make a new one, though. And it generates it. And here we're looking at an Odoo spreadsheet. I'm going to give it a title. I'm going to call it Invoice Analysis by Rep. Long name. Okay. Maybe I'll save it as one of my favorites so it's easy to reference later on. Who knows? So here you can see it. It's a spreadsheet. It should look pretty familiar if you've ever seen a spreadsheet before. It should look a lot like Google Sheets. It should look quite a bit like Excel. It gives you all the formatting tools you would expect. If you want to, you can delete things. You can change the font size, the color. Pretty obvious. I'm not going to spend too much time on the standard formatting options. But it's important to understand how this works because it is a little bit unique. Each one of these cells is actually controlled through a formula. So if I click on one of these cells, right up here in the formula bar, you could see that this is being fed from data on the back end of Odoo. And if you click on it, we've actually improved this a lot in version 15 through the formula bar and formula assistant so that it'll tell you exactly what you're looking at and how this formula lays out. Because it might look a little bit intimidating at first, but if you just hover over it, you'll see that this is coming from a pivot table. If you click on this, it says this is which pivot ID it's coming from. Because you might imagine, you might have a spreadsheet that's being fed by 5 different pivot tables. So this says which one it is. Then it says, what are we measuring? We're measuring the overall invoice price subtotal. That's the field that is showing up in these. And then these are filters that narrow it down. So it's showing it by product and this specific product ID, which is the sofa, and then also by employee or user on this side. And so it spells it out, and you've got a little glossary down here where it explains exactly what it means by these things. So it's really helpful, especially when you're trying to make a lot of edits and changes and taking that spreadsheet from there. So yeah, we've improved that a lot when it comes to that. Another thing that you should see probably is the fact that you can right-click on it and go to Pivot Properties. And another way to kind of understand what you're looking at is it pops up over here, as you can see. And it spells it out in very kind of user-friendly terms, showing you this is what it's filtering down to. It's only showing these kinds of invoices, and these are the dimensions for it. It's really helpful because maybe one person is generating the spreadsheet, but then they're sharing it with the CEO, and maybe the CEO needs to figure out quickly what are they actually looking at. So it's a good way to find that out. Another thing that we've added for version 15 is the ability to just see records really quick. So you're not stuck on a spreadsheet. If you want to, you can right-click on a cell, and you can go ahead and click See Records, and it immediately is going to spit up a list of what those records are. It's pretty helpful, and it's going to be different depending on what you click. So for example, if you choose the overall total and do See Records, it's going to spit out a longer list of records right there. And then you can use filters and grouping and stuff like that. So that's a really valuable tool so that you can just drill into things real quickly if you need to. So yeah, that's how to make a basic spreadsheet. But one thing that we've added in the new version, in version 15, is instead of just bringing it from a pivot table, maybe you want to bring it from just a simple list view. Because sometimes it doesn't necessarily make sense to build a pivot. Maybe the data is a little bit simpler, but you still need it to be in a spreadsheet. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my employees. And let's say that I want to bring data in from how much time this employee has worked. So I'm going to go to this guy named Mark. He's one of the sales reps that was in the invoice analysis. I'm going to go ahead and find his working time, which defaults to a list. In fact, you can't even view it as a pivot table by default if you want to, because it's just a simple list. But you can grab that list, you can go over to favorites right here, and you could either, if I wanted to, I could just send a simple link to this page if I wanted to and put that in a spreadsheet, which is kind of nice. But I'm actually going to insert the list itself and put it in rows. And if you want to, you can narrow it down and say, just show me the first 7, for example. And just like before, we could put it in a new spreadsheet, or we could add it to our existing spreadsheet, Invoice Analysis by Rep. So I'm going to go and throw it in there, and it automatically will add it in a new tab, as you can see here. So I'm going to go ahead and rename these tabs so I can reference it real quick. I'll say this is the one with the invoices, and this is the one with the working time for Mark specifically. All right, cool. So now I have these 2 tabs side by side, and it was really easy to do it. You can populate it from a list just like you could with a pivot table like before. And then we can actually start comparing this data and interacting with the 2 different tabs here. One shortcut that we've added a bunch of little shortcuts and a lot of little usability features along the way. If I were select this cell right here and hit Alt and the plus sign, it automatically says, do you want to sum up a total? So that's kind of quick and easy. Summing is a pretty common feature to do, so that's just a way to save time. And this is the total amount of time that this person worked in this period. And then let's say that I want to do a comparison where I just want to see how much has this person invoiced over this period of time. I'm going to go ahead and do an equals right here. I'm going to grab the invoiced total for Mark Demo right here, and I'm going to divide it by the overall working time that we have in this tab, and ta-da. Pretty simple, but that's the point. We want it to be simple and make it easy to just collect data from different sources and start building your formulas and start having that data interact. And of course, if you are like me with spreadsheets, you'll get really OCD with the formatting and things like that. So I'll say average invoice per hour or something like that. And of course, you can do things like merge the cells together, and you can change the format, change the font size, the layout, all that kind of stuff. Okay, and then the most important thing is it's going to update in real time as more data occurs. So if I want to, I might create a new invoice real quick for another 3-seat sofa. Let me go into accounting. Let me go ahead and make an invoice for one of our existing customers, like the famous Deco Addict. And of course, most importantly, it's going to be under the sales rep of Mark Demo. And we'll sell yet another sofa. In fact, this is a huge sale. It's going to be 5 sofas. Somebody has need for a lot of sofas in their house. Maybe just as a backup, who knows? And now that I've confirmed that, if you want to return to a spreadsheet, you should probably know that they live in the Documents app. In fact, you need to have the Documents app installed if you want to have the Spreadsheets feature. And I know we're going to get this question, we always do. Not currently available for community. It is only available for Odoo Enterprise, Odoo SH, Odoo Self-Hosted Enterprise, in case you're curious. But anyway, here's a link to that spreadsheet. I'll go ahead and get back into it. And this amount has changed in real time, I believe, unless I have to refresh. Yeah, it's already updated for us in real time. And of course, that's going to impact all the calculations that we made as well, too, over time. So that's good. Let me go through some other features that we have that are pretty useful. And some of them are really unique to Odoo, too. The way we handle filters is pretty unique. I'm going to click on filters right here. And you have the option to set up your own filters to allow you to interact with your data on the spreadsheet. I'm going to go ahead and make one for date. And I'll say month, because that's what we're going to set the filter up for. We're going to be able to track by month or narrow it down by month. And if you want, you can set up a default value. These filters that we set up are global, so they can impact anything within here. I'm going to go ahead and say due date, for example, on the invoice analysis, which I've had several imports of it. But I'm going to maybe use a different field of reference for the attendance and working time that I brought in. I'll do check-in for that and save that. And then the way it works, it's really easy. Now, from at any point in the future, you can click on this and you could say, show me all the invoices that happen in July. And I don't think there are any that happen in July. What about August? Nothing for August either. What about September? Well, as it's loading and thinking about the invoices that we've had here, I just want to point out that you could do the same thing for, there we go, September. And it narrows it down. Of course, if you remove that filter or deactivate it, then it'll show you all of your data again. So it's a quick and easy way to just kind of narrow down the data that you're looking at and trying to find. And you could do the same thing with relational fields. So if you want to, you can have it be a drop-down where you choose which sales representative you're looking at. Or you could just do it text for any field of text that pops up as well. It's a quick and easy way to just say, I only want to look at some of the data on this spreadsheet at a particular time and go back and forth. Something that we've improved a lot in version 15 is our ability to edit and work with charts. So I'm going to go ahead and select this data right here and do insert chart. And for one thing, I just want to point out that compared to the last time I used Google Sheets, that chart popped up really fast, which is kind of nice. For the kind of data that we're looking at, I'm going to go ahead and use a pie chart. And if you're unfamiliar with the way that we handle charts in Odoo, it's interactive. So if you want to, you can select or deselect certain things while you're looking at it. That's kind of nice. And we also added some cosmetic abilities to change the design, like, for example, changing it to night mode, if you want to do that kind of a thing, if that's your thing. So yeah, some improved options for charts. In the original version, once you've created a chart, you kind of had to stick with it, and if you wanted to change it, you'd have to delete it and start over. Now we actually have the ability to quickly and easily edit it and make changes like you would hope for, so that's good. Other things that we've added that are increasing the usability are conditional formatting options. So if I want to, I could click this section right here of invoice totals, and I'm going to go ahead and set up some conditional formatting right here. And we already have the simple conditional formatting to do single color. So if the amount is, say, greater than let's say 45,000, then it'll be a certain color. Pretty straightforward. I'm a big fan of conditional formatting, which is one of the nerdiest things I've ever said, but it's true. But we also added some additional options. If we want to, we could do a color scale gradient, or we could do an icon set. I'll show you how that kind of works. And actually, it kind of touches on the fact, like I talked about earlier, you might set goals or KPIs. And in this case, I'll say that the goal is 60,000. That's how much we want to invoice. And then I will then set up a percentage so that we can track how well did we actually achieve that. And I'm going to go ahead and take this. I'm going to divide it by this. And that gives us the percentage achievement for each of these products. And then I'm going to go ahead and set this up with conditional formatting, and I'm going to use a gradient. And the way that the gradient color scale works is you get to choose a min point, and we'll say that the min point is at least 10. And midpoint somewhere in the middle might not necessarily be 50%, might be, I don't know, you might consider 60% to be the midpoint. And then you could do, 100% is good enough, and you can have it be a really weird color scale of going from, dark red all the way to green, and something like that. And that works pretty well. As you can see, we've got our little color scale, but you might prefer it to actually use our new icon set that we just added, which is a really good way to kind of see good or bad, is it actually meeting the KPI or not? And if you want to, you can use our favorite, which is the happy faces. Great way to quickly see is somebody meeting the KPI or not, something like that. So that's conditional formatting. We're happy with that. That helps a lot, especially when you're tracking progress and KPIs. And then we've just added a bunch of specific features to help with usability and to make it more editable and give you more control. So for example, if I wanted to delete a cell, which, yeah, maybe you will delete information sometimes. Maybe you need to. Maybe you're going to override it. But maybe you'll change your mind and say that you need to repopulate that again. The formula is gone, but it's not a big deal because you can either right-click and you can bring back the pivot table itself by reinserting the pivot, and then it immediately just populates the whole thing. I'm going to undo that. Or maybe you will go ahead and click on the specific cell and reinsert the cell itself. And the way that works, it does a pop-up, and it tells you which cells you need to repopulate. And I'll go ahead and say, yeah, it's that one that we're bringing in. So it's a nice way to help you repair your data if it ever breaks, either intentionally or unintentionally. We also added the ability to do real-time collaboration, which is pretty powerful and really good, especially if you have two people working on the same thing at the same time and they're actually clicking on the same cell and trying to edit it. You want to try to prevent that kind of thing and see who's doing what. So now with the new version, if you have multiple users logged into the same thing, you can always see what cell are they looking at, what are they referencing, that kind of thing. And that's not always easy to do, real-time collaboration type things and live kind of updates like that in a system like Odoo, so we're proud of that. And then you also have the ability, if you want to just sort. It's a simple thing to do, but it's really critical in a lot of cases. So now you have the ability, if you right-click on it, to sort a whole range, either in ascending or descending order, like you might assume. And if you do that, it'll ask you, do you want me to sort all of the rows that go with that? And of course, usually you would want to, I would think. The only other thing that I wanted to show before we wrap this up is we've added the ability to just simply export this as an Excel file. It might seem simple, but it's important to be able to do it in such a way where it actually retains the formatting that you're looking for. So it's got our pie chart right there. It's got our little KPIs and things like that. And more importantly, perhaps, you can save it as a template for future use. So if you save it as a template, then you can use this template in the future for other reps, for other products, for other companies, other markets, things like that. And that also lives in your Documents app. If you go into configuration, you can see all of your different templates that you have. And this is the one that I created. And if you wanted to, I could make a new spreadsheet using that template. And you'll notice that we also added a bunch of templates that come with it by default, including sales commission, which is something that I mentioned earlier. It has a preset set of formulas, and it's automatically bringing in data. And then you can take that template and make your modifications and make it work for you. But it, ideally should save you some time in the process. And that is pretty much it as far as demonstrating the new features that we have. Just to sum it up real quick, we've got a formula assistant, lets you see very quickly what you're working with. You can insert data from a list. We have new options for configuring both charts and conditional formatting. You have the ability to edit in new ways that we didn't have before, whether it's simple things like sorting or bringing data back in. You can always view your records in a list view. You can collaborate in real time with other users, and you can just download as a spreadsheet or save as templates. And we're very excited. If you want to talk it over about ways that you can use the spreadsheet tool, if you want ideas, if you have questions, we're here to help.
All right, thank you so much, Brett. It was very nice to see how we can use Odoo Spreadsheet today.
Sure, it's a fascinating topic.
Yeah.
Super fun.
Yeah. One question that I kind of want to ask you, just to introduce, to talk about that. What is your favorite new Odoo features on the spreadsheet since V14, who was the first time we released it?
No, that's a perfect question. I think for me, even though it might seem simple, it's the ability to click See Records and then get a quick list view of the records. Because I use Odoo Spreadsheets internally, and I have been using it for the last several months, to track our billing target that we have internally. We have a billing target per month. So I have goals, essentially KPIs, and it's pulling in information from a bunch of different invoices from different teams, and I'm filtering out some that's not affecting the target. And it's always frustrating up to this point that I'm not able to just see, well, what are these records? What are these invoices? But now we can do that very, very quickly and easily. It's going to save me a ton of time. So that's a good feature.
And how is the KPI doing?
It's through the roof. Yeah, exactly.
All right. We have the first question regarding the fact that these features is available in V13.
No, I wish, but we only developed Odoo Spreadsheets starting with version 14. So at this point in time, 14 and 15 only. I don't anticipate it being backported to 13.
Backported, yeah. One more question about the user collaboration. Someone is asking if you can have, for a specific spreadsheet, you can have specific user assigned to that.
Okay. You can share it with people. You can give it people access to it and provide them with a specific link to it. And you can do it in such a way that if somebody else doesn't have the link, they're not going to be able to view it. But we don't have specific access rights per document, not exactly. We have general read, write, edit access for all spreadsheets.
All right, thank you. Yeah. Can we save the spreadsheet at a point in times? So the spreadsheet will be, you won't be able to update the spreadsheet.
Okay, I see what you're saying. There's a lock feature that you can use for anything in the Documents app, but it's not exactly the same thing. I think the recommendation would normally be you essentially export it as a Excel file or a CSV file, something like that. And then you stop having that spreadsheet be edited, either by hiding the link to it and don't let anybody work on it. But yeah, basically exporting it to an outside place is the best way to freeze it to get a snapshot.
Thank you. We have a question about a specific formula. I believe that VLOOKUP will work between tabs with the same spreadsheet, but not between separate spreadsheet, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, correct. You can use VLOOKUP for anything within that single spreadsheet. But if you want to reference something from another spreadsheet, our recommended pathway would be instead just point to the data that is feeding that other spreadsheet. Go straight to the source instead of pulling from another spreadsheet. Maybe in the future we'll add that.
All right, yeah. One more question about, can we download the spreadsheet to a local file?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And this time with the formula, right?
Oh yes, exactly. That's a huge update. Yeah, before if you were to bring it out as basically a flat data, but now you actually bring the formulas with it.
Yeah. One more. Let's see. What happened to the column and row cells inserted after creating the spreadsheet if the number of rows change after updating?
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's not a problem. It won't cause any issues with it because the formulas stay in whatever cells generated with that cell and whatnot. So if you insert a column, you insert row, you move things over, you shift to the left, whatever, it preserves the proper formulas, and they will continue to point to what they're supposed to point to.
All right. So I see there is more question. I know that you're going to be available, so I'm going to drop the link to the chat, and you guys can join. He's going to go in the other room, but you can ask as many questions as you want, and Brett will be available. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll see you guys in the extended Q&A session after we put that link